He, she, songo, Teracho Chefkados. So my name is Tara Moses, pronounce she, her, hers, and I am a third / kind of fourth super senior MFA directing kid. My track is very specialized. That's the beauty of the Brown Trinity Rep program, that this is truly a program for directors. The actors brought everything to these characters. That was sort of the ask from day one, way back in April when the show was selected, was this is a generative process. We will be generating. And so these weren't characters before. In the score, they were just named after the original actors who played those roles. It was just a specific track. There's no character, no story. And so they brought everything, things they didn't know they had, things they didn't know they needed, things I gave them, things that were just discovered in the room. It's truly been the most generative kind of process I've ever been in, which is quite different from how I've ever worked and typically like to work. This has been fun. This is not improv. It's very different. I think of it more as rooted generation. So it's all rooted in the music and the lyrics that these folks initially wrote, but instead elevated, really examined, highlighted, questioned, conflicted, all of the things, but deeply rooted in what we have. As a director, I work under this guise of creative sovereignty. This is a practice that's existed for thousands of years, but I did coin the term. So like to be specific where credit is due. Didn't make it up, made up the words. But creative sovereignty, what that is the inherent ability to self-govern how you create. And so that means each individual artist is a full artist. I'm not here to be like cross stage left at this point. I want you to do it this way, that way, like a lot of colonial directing is. And instead it's rooted firmly in each individual artist's spirit. And so for me, what was most surprising is sort of juggling how I work always with creative sovereignty and how much formalized structure do I need to give. Again, this is brand new. I've never done this before. This is never done with this musical before. My favorite thing is whenever an artist, whether that's a designer or an actor, comes in with a choice that's not necessarily my cup of tea. My favorite thing in the world. Because as a director, my creative sovereignty exists in like, I've made the frame of this world. As long as what an artist is bringing in is within that frame, regardless if it's to my personal taste, I stay out the way. It is not my business to infringe on someone else's creative sovereignty. And what has happened 100% of the time is that the end product is so much more like nuanced and complicated and, lack of better words, better than I initially imagined, because I'm not stepping on someone's right to exist as a full-blown human. An example of whenever an artist brought in a choice that a colonized director may have shut it down during Fugitive Songs is our Mystery 7th Ensemble member, Chingwe Padraig Sullivan, who's also indigenous. They're Shinnecock and Montaukett. And that's also very important for this show, that this is a Shinnecock and Montaukett person in the world of New York City. But there was a moment when we were blocking a particular song later in the show, and they wanted to do a physical movement across the stage that quite absurd, very silly, a little jarring in a way. And it's so funny because we're in rehearsal, and I work with Chingwe often, also as Chingwe's another native person, speak very similar languages. But I was like, Chingwe, I was like, I hate it. Every fiber of my being hates this. It makes me uncomfortable. I hate it. And then Chingwe was like, well, I could do something else. I was like, no. I was like, keep it. Do it. Keep doing it. And then we did it for the first time in front of the entire company, because it was just Chingwe and I and a small group of actors yesterday. And all of them dropped into understanding the rules of this space, because they're in the 7th ensemble member space. And it made it really clear about how things work here. And so I was like, look at that. It all pieced in together. And if I would have just been like, my personal cup of tea is that you did not do this, we wouldn't have got there like we did. I hope audiences will take away a sense of imagination of what are the ways in which we can radically reframe work to make space for different kinds of folks. This musical was written by two well-meaning white men who released a statement in 2020 that one of the original songs was deeply racist and anti-Black. And then they had to take that out. And so that whiteness is present in the show. And this was an opportunity with a cast that is 98% not white for themselves to fully shine. And you see that in how the music is orchestrated differently. You see that in their costuming. We also see that in the frame of this space being run by a Native person on Native land in one of the most colonized cities of New York City. And so what I hope is that folks leave like thinking, oh, there is a way to make work fit a diversity of folks truly, without it just being we're casting diversely. And then finally, I hope people leave like having a good time, y'all. Like, it's rough on these streets. Let's have a good time. For so long, and this is true for many communities and many different folks, but speaking specifically for like the Native identity, the design team is truly out of this world. And so folks are really gonna leave with a like visual and like visceral and emotional auditory experience that I think they're gonna really enjoy. I was like, wow, it took my thesis for me to be challenged, but going out with a bang. See, I paused for camera. You're welcome.